Hey guys, this is Turok, and boy, do we got a lot of stuff to go over today with chapter 1044 of One Piece. Now, if you haven't read it yet, or you're waiting for the official version, this is not the place. I'll be reading that one later when it comes out, or if it hasn't, I have to get back. I'm gonna get myself back on the Viz things. Well, can I check that now? Actually. I've read an unofficial translation of it. Let's see, is it up yet? Chapters. Hold on. Nope, it's coming out in 2 days. Yep. So this is an unofficial version I've looked up. I keep track of it. I watch it when it comes out. And even if all the stuff isn't correct in here, I'm still going over it today. And because it is a fucking doozy. Right off the bat, Luffy is not a Paramecia person user anymore. This is wild. Let me go over this more chronologically first. So in the beginning, at the last chapter, let's start back, a little recap. Kaido knocked out Luffy with the help of the Cypher Pole Zero agent, and he did not get the victory he wanted. And he appears to have also taken out the Cypher Pole Zero agent in retaliation because he had this great victory thrust from him. Something I've gone over before, and I'm sure others have, is that Kaido, for all his fault in harming and abusing the people of Wano, is a person that wants a fair fight. Something I guess we can respect about him. And this was taken from him last chapter by the Cypher Pole agent, and this happened to him before with Oden, and he was very angry about it at that point too, and it was not any different in this scenario. And after that, he's trying to get the unconditional surrender of the Momonosuke. Moving on, he's kind of like moving on to try to finish this up first, but I'm sure afterward if the scenario continued where Luffy lost, he'd probably be drinking quite a bit of sake for a year because of how he won't feel like he'll ever he would have not got a good challenge ever again, which also but he's gonna get it now, it looks like. So Luffy here at the beginning seems to be waking up. We're seeing his thoughts. How am I still alive or not alive? Standing. And next we have Momonosuke talking to what's her name again? Yamato. Relaying the idea that Luffy is now Joy Boy, and we're gonna find out closely here what this means. And I think that this pretty much is not what some of us were thinking about, where Luffy is being possessed by the spirit of Joy Boy. This is seems to be quite a bit different. And so next we got Sanji awaking from resting, and as well as Law and Kid. I'm sorry, who's that one? Then you got that one Samurai. I forget his name. To look, and then we also even got Marco. Like, all these people are aware of his awakening. I guess they all have maybe observation haki. I'm not very good at knowing who has that at this point, but they all are like in shock of what they're sensing. It seems I love this. It's very reminiscent to me of like Dragon Ball Z stuff, where it's first a couple things here like that, where Goku gets back on his feet and is like after his first Super Saiyan transformation, and it's like anyways, I can't reenact that. Hold 1 second. Okay, and the next point we have Nami and what's the girl's name? The one with the special fruit, the thing she can produce from her cheeks, crying together in happiness that Luffy's still alive, which is great to see. Nami is not a character. Some of her greedy traits in that don't click well with me, but I like her but don't like her. So I'm happy to see her. I don't know. Never mind. I can't. That's a difficult discussion to go over with her. But at this point, then it switches over to this is this here. We're at Marijois with the Gorosei, and this is the I saw this in the spoiler summaries earlier this week, and now I see they're true. We're getting what's the word? The girls are explaining about the fruit and its true properties now. So we knew that they had the Gamu Gamu, one of the Gamu Gamu Nomi, as we thought it was called. What was that? 12, 13 years ago. From they had Who's Who, right? Who's Who tried to bring it to them, and Shanks intercepted it and took it from him. And we don't know. This begs the question too. Did Shanks know that this fruit was what it actually is, or did he just want it because it was devil fruit, and maybe he wanted it from another member of his crew, or to sell it? Either way, he acquired it, and Who's Who was severely punished, and now we fully understand why. Because this is probably one of the most important fruits ever. I would say between this fruit at this point and perhaps Blackbeard fruit. And there's some other correlations there I want to point out later. So, they talk about the guy that Tekking always calls Samurai Gandhi. So I'm going to just borrow that name from you, Tekking. I think it's a great name. He points out how the Gamu Gamu Nomi, that the government's always tried to acquire it. And, first one of them is questioning whether the priorities, whether they should have even wasted a Cypherpole agent to try and get rid of Luffy. But they point out that they have to get rid of him right away. So it seems to me, though, that they want to make sure that he doesn't become more of a problem, which he's been doing for 2+ years now. They've been watching him after Crocodile's defeat. And it's now that they realize what fruit he has, they are really after him. And also that begs a question here whether or not they'll send more powerful bounty hunters after him, which has been something interesting to think about, because ever since we found out about the bounties of Big Mom and Kaido and Shanks, I've been wondering, are there any other bounty hunters out there that would think about going after them? And it seems like they aren't. But I'm wondering if there is anything close to that where someone would be willing to go after Luffy. And so Samurai Gandhi talks about that they've always failed to get the fruit. So I'm wondering if if he died here, Luffy died, if they keep Wano, if they can acquire Wano and send men there, if they're hoping to find the fruit, would be hoping to find the fruit there afterward, in hopes that the essence, it would go into the nearby fruit there, which is something with devil fruits I've been wondering about, if they go further away, how far away does the fruit go, the essence, to find a host, a fruit, an actual fruit as a host to hold itself temporarily until another person can find it. And so the one guy with the beard, the V-shaped beard, talks about the fruit evading us because they've never been able to acquire it. And here we go, and right here we get the name of the fruit. It is a mythical zone of the human fruit category, Madonika. Now, I'm wondering if that translation is correct. I was trying to research Nika, and I keep getting things about Nike, a goddess of victory in Greek mythology. And here we talk about the properties of the fruit. So it has the properties of rubber, so it is similar to what we were calling it the Gamu Gamu Nomi, so it wasn't too far off in being called that all this time, because it still regains these properties. And then in combat, this is very interesting here too. They are supposedly only limited by their imagination, which is very interesting, because now that carries over to how Luffy managed to, through some internal training and manipulation, make his body use the gears, his early gears, especially gear second was always particularly interesting to me, and his ability to amp up his body so that he could perform faster and stronger in battle. So his imagination, exactly as I said, and Luffy's imagination in combat seems pretty limitless, has put him able to use this fruit. This fruit is perfect to go with Luffy in that sense. And then we talk about putting smiles on their faces. So it's something else that seems very good to go with Luffy. He's a person who who's always smiling, and that's also connected with the will of D, who the people who have passed away from there always seem to have a smile on their face. So this fruit, it's almost like this is the fruit of the will of D to some degree, with the smile on their faces, and especially this. It has the embodiment of the warrior of liberation. But also they call him a sun god. Is very interesting, because I think of sun gods, I think of like Ra, and how sun gods, I forget other cultures that have them right now, that they are usually the top god in certain pantheons. Well, in the other ones you got like Zeus, who's a thunder god. I know Odin doesn't really know. Thor's a thunder god there. But this makes me think about the correlation here of the sun god being a top tier, the top of the food chain, so to speak, or the top of a pantheon. And I feel like that correlates really nicely with Luffy, because he wants to be the top pirate, the king of the pirates. And this works better in my mind, because when I think of a king, I always think of someone who's ruling over a nation, and the pirates aren't really a nation. You got pirates like Big Mom and Kaido who've created their own little groups and rule over nations to establish their power base and exert themselves over that, and also because they wanted to find a One Piece, so they needed those bases to be able to have a base of operations. But being a king always just makes you think you're going to rule over all the pirates as a single nation, a united nation of pirates. And there is that one pirate island that Blackbeard's on that's a pirate haven that could be, maybe that was once something like that. Maybe Rox was kind of controlling all the pirates that way, and none of the others after him, Whitebeard and Big Mom, could do that. They just made their own subnations. But being a god who's going to become king of the pirates, that sounds more of a thing where Luffy can be a embodiment. And I guess this is true if he becomes king of the pirates. Whoever would become king of the pirates would become the embodiment of what people in the world will think of with pirates. With misinformation from the world government, it would probably be hard. It could be hard, but hopefully, if Luffy becomes that, this could change. When Roger became king of the pirates, the first king of the pirates that was coined to him, at least I think, he got so much misinformation spread about him by the world government and through the news that you saw how the people talked about him, that when there's flashbacks with Ace, how they didn't like him because they thought he ruined the world, especially with his speech at his death about the One Piece. But back to the sun god. So now we know Luffy is not a Paramecia anymore. But this also begs a question of whether or not there could be an actual rubber fruit out there that's explicitly a rubber fruit, where they can maybe bend, kind of like Mr. Fantastic and the Fantastic Four. And there's nothing here to state that. All we know here is that it was misclassified. There was, in the earlier chapters, they talked about it being classified differently, purposely hidden. And so any of those encyclopedias and that had the wrong entry about this to hide the fact that it's the fruit of Joy Boy. And then next we get this really interesting panel give me a sec, let me review this again and see here. Yes, so now we have something very interesting here, which points out that the awakening of this fruit gives it the most ridiculous power in the world. And this is a very interesting concept I'm thinking about, that it really gives him this flexibility, the way how Luffy can handle almost any threat he's gone up against. And I know Tekking had talked about this too, that it was like a counter fruit to anything. And this really seems to go into that kind of concept, that it can be a fruit that can handle almost any situation, which will be interesting though with Blackbeard. Because when I heard about this, when I thought that concept from Tekking's video, I kept thinking about, what about Blackbeard's fruit? And how his also seems to be a counter to devil fruits in general, that it can snuff or negate their power, like it did with Ace and Whitebeard, and render them unable to rely on that in a battle. How will Luffy's fruit now in an awakened form handle that? I'll go more into that later. But after that, we switch back to what's his name again? God, I can't hate this guy. God, Orochi, right? Orochi, forgive me. Go back to Orochi and what's her name? I just read her name and I forgot. Let me go back. Let me find her name. Hiyori, right? Hiyori and Orochi. Orochi here, the slimy bastard that he is decided to try to beg for his life and try to put all the blame onto Kaido for all the things he did to Oden. And fortunately here, Hiyori is taking none of it. And she throws everything he did wrong back into Orochi's face. Talks about how Oden never even told them why he was acting that way for all those years, where he did all the dancing, making himself look like a fool to appease them, Kaido and Orochi, or Orochi more so, I guess, to appease them and keep them from harming his people. And so Hiyori reminds him of all this, and we get some little flashback images of his dancing and the moment right before his passing, where he stood in the oil and tried to defend and held up his was it these scabbards, I believe. And she talks about him always smiling too, which I don't remember. Was Oden considered a D clan member? He certainly seems like he'd be an honorable member. What do you call it? If he wasn't. And so she goes to another flashback that we have a flashback here where Oden tells Hiyori that he's okay with doing this because he has his family, or he has you guys, it reads, we really get a sad scene here with Hiyori crying, little Hiyori crying here in happiness that he showed his love for her, I guess. And after that, we get this really great picture here of Hiyori. She finally takes off this mask, the mask she's always been wearing. I think she was always wearing that in combat too earlier, if I recall, and she would, in order to kind of hide the fact that she has to harm others. And this image is just so impactful. I can't wait to see this in the anime, of how the voice actress gives this emotional thing about and calls him a miserable wretch. And what happens here lastly, let's see, so next we have, now freaking Orochi tries to tell her, don't do something you're going to regret, and realize that, and don't do this too, because Kaido will get you afterward. In which place then that fire spirit, I forget what it was actually called, returns at this point. And Orochi, still being a slimy bastard he is, tries to have that thing help him and go after Hiyori. But I don't understand what made it doing it, what's making it decide this. But it goes and attacks Orochi instead. And I'm not losing any tears over it. The face here of Orochi's writhing in pain. I mean, I don't like to see people in pain, but it has some satisfaction to it, because this guy's just such a slimy son of a bitch. And Hiyori just looks on, still with tears on her face, and it just doesn't matter. She doesn't care. So I don't know if that's fully the end of Orochi here, but it does seem to be. Oh, and let me go back. Now that we're switching back, after this we're switching back to Luffy, and there's something interesting going on here that I thought was just symbolic earlier, but they showed Luffy with, like, leaping in the air, and I know they showed this earlier. I found other people talk about it, and I looked back in the chapter. They showed an image. Let me just scroll back to that chapter. I think it was 10:8. The chapter with it's the chapter with Jinbei and Who's Who fighting, and he talks about the legend. And I had forgotten about this. There's all this other fighting going on. I forgot about this bit of the chapter where he talks about during his imprisonment, Who's Who clung on to this. This is where we got the little hint about the sun god Nika, and he talked about clinging to this legend in order to help him get through his suffering. And in that image, it shows him looking like the character of Nika, looking like someone. I want to say it looks like a stereotype tribal look, like with the little waist, the loincloth kind of thing or something. I can't tell. It looks, and he's holding a spear, so it just makes me think of someone who's a warrior, tribal warrior who's there to save everyone, and he's got a sword in his hand too. And now with back in the other chapter though, when we see Luffy, it's using the same position of like jumping in the sun, and the sun's behind him, but now it's Luffy's look, and it looks like him in his outfit, of course, with his shorts, his red shirt or something. Well, was he wearing red here? And it maybe kind of like the hat behind him. So it's been modified now. And then I noticed here too, there's the drums. There's a drum sound going on, which I'm not sure if that's the result of his awakening, or is that just supposed to be symbolic with the fact that he's a god of liberation, a warrior of liberation, excuse me. So we're cutting back to this right after Hiroi and Orochi's scenes, and it's showing the drums now sound and the sun over the skull part of Onigashima. And that's very interesting, because I'm wondering if that's like the sun literally is appearing now because he's awakened. I just think, was there any there's some fan coloring at the end of this. That doesn't show that. But this is where the shit gets real here at the end. And now Luffy's talking to himself again, how I feel like anything's possible and he can keep fighting. And his heartbeat, he's talking about his heartbeat being funny, which is funny to me, interesting to me, because whenever he used gear second and then he had the gear fourth incorporating that, his heartbeat was probably racing. He was using that thing that was kind of like doping in a real life to make his body perform better. And now we get the scene where Luffy calls it gear fifth. So the gear fifth thing, which I've seen people talk about for quite a while, is now here. And of course Luffy would just call it gear fifth because he just keeps using those numbers, and it's an easy classification, I suppose. But in this next scene, we're going to see in a moment. Well, let me show. This seems like more than just a gear fifth. This is truly an awakening. This reminds me of how in Dragon Ball Z, this is that when the next true transformation came along, the character lost all of that. So like when you had like when you had like Goku turning into using Kaioken, the more he buffed it up, the more multiples of it he used, the times 3 and 4, I forget what he had to use against Vegeta. He really buffed up, but he was still real fast, and he didn't lose any portion of stamina and stuff like that, except the fact that he can't use it much. And then after that, he got Super Saiyan, and he was moderately buffer, but he was not that crazy big size. And then Toriyama brought it back to buffness again with Ascended Super Saiyan, and Vegeta, Trunks, and Goku even found out how to do it too, would buff up while they're still Super Saiyan, so they're multiplying the Super Saiyan powers, and whether there's potential. Come on, kitty, come in. And they would buff up as well, but still be able to move fast and just kick ass. But it was not to get further beyond that. Goku learned to surpass that at the end too, though, to keep training and become more of a retain the base Super Saiyan's size while increasing his power. And I feel like there were similarities there with Luffy, when he got first gear fourth, he's moving really fast, and he did really well in Doflamingo's fight. But that was like the ascended Super Saiyan, and then when he got Snake Man, the first one was called Bound Man, right? And then the Snake Man was more like Goku and Gohan's final Super Saiyan forms, where they were able to retain a more lean look. And Snake Man 2 was quite a bit lean. But then from that point, they go to Super Saiyan 2. It basically is the same thing, but more powerful. And this form here reminds me of that. Well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit now. So at this point, we're going back to Kaido. So wait, did Kaido? Yeah, that was part 2 of Kaido, I believe, was looking up there too and realizing something's going on, right? Did I miss that bit? No, maybe that comes later. Come on, kitty. I'll feed you lunch in a second. Hold on. My cat's getting a little hungry, but I'm almost done here. So, oh no, that's the point. So Kaido is down on, I think there's like the upper floors of Onigashima. All right, please, don't scratch me. Just sit there. Hold on, I'm gonna feed the cat. Okay, kitty's satiated. Kitty's satiated. So, now, this next scene, we have the ceiling breaking down, and everyone's looking up there, and and then some of the Kaido's troops start passing out from Conqueror's Haki, and Kaido's confused by what's going on, and looks up at the roof, and there's this close-up of his dragon face that I can't tell if he's supposed to be scared or extremely surprised, or a bit of both. But as he looks up into there, the others all start screaming Luffy and Straw Hat, and he comes out, his arm just comes out and grabs fucking Kaido, like, just grips him with a giant, like, Gear 3rd looking appearance of power use on Kaido. And next we see him smiling, and Kaido just like, what the hell? And he just starts swinging the hell out of Kaido. And there's just these panels here where Luffy's looking like he's semi-Gear 4th again, too, where he's just extremely buff. They just got this scene where the bicep is like he's on steroids. And he just thumps the hell out of Kaido he looks like he's at the gym. Actually, at the gym with the ropes. I can't think of the name of them. And he's swinging Kaido around like he's exercising with it. And he just slams Kaido down. And and Luffy's just laughing. And then we get Kaido looking at now smiling that he's happy that Luffy's still alive. So he gets to resume his fight. So now we're back to Kaido having his fight, and these panels are a little funny here now. I gotta follow. So at this point, Kaido, does his Boro breath on Luffy. And Luffy just keeps laughing here, and he, instead of like being, one scene there, he looks like he's got this cartoon scared look with the eyes. But he quickly counters by pulling the ground up and just blocking the attack. And it just reminds me of something out of like a cartoon. I really feel like, I'm starting to feel like that Oda is going for a cartoon-like powers here with Luffy, especially when they mentioned, Gorosei mentioned how the power of imagination is contingent to making this fruit extremely usable, reaching its full potential. And as he does that thing, as he pulls that up, it looks like he reverses, no, my cat's going, come on, reverses the attack onto Kaido. And after that panel, we finally get a close-up of Luffy's Gear 5th. And the fan colorings are showing different stuff, but looking at it in this black and white, it looks like Luffy has clouds around him. Like, and his hair, though, is completely different. It almost looks like it's on fire. And I believe there's a fan version out there coloring that shows him. Yeah, like his hair looks like it's on fire. They're showing it, but oh, that's just smoke. Okay, it's fire. They're showing. Oh, that's right, because he's the sun god. I got it. Luffy's supposed to be a sun god, so now apparently Gear 5th, his awakening, is Luffy having his hair on fire with smoke looping around his shoulders. And at the end here, now we reach the end. At the end here, we have Kaido apologize that the fight before was interfered in. And he didn't want to win like that, which is a pretty noble thing, I guess, to say coming from someone like Kaido. And Luffy, we get a close-up of Luffy's eyes. And whoa, his eyes just have these big white irises with a dot in the middle. And he's just like, he looks wild. Like, he's always been wild. But now he truly looks like a wild person. And he's still smiling away, and he's like, he just like forgives Kaido. I'm like, I don't sweat it. Let's finish this. And it's like, end chapter. This is one fucking chapter. I'm gonna be rereading this, and I'm gonna be watching everyone else's reaction to this soon. As soon as I'm done here. So, other notes I had on here. The sun thing. As soon as I saw this too, this made me think about Fisher Tiger. And how he used the sun, he became the Sun Pirates. And I'm wondering that makes me think now his idea of that came from, Fisher Tiger got enslaved by the Toby, oh my god, I forget the name of the Toby, I'm sorry. He's enslaved, and he was there for a number of years, and he escaped. And eventually returned and freed everyone, all the slaves there, including Boa Hancock and her sisters. Which makes me wonder if at the time, first the sun, that Fisher Tiger must have got I'm sure he must have got the idea of the Sun Pirates from learning about Nika at that, about being there. Because who talks about people always clinging to that, the heroic legend to help get them through their suffering. And so Fisher Tiger, being a person who became a liberator himself, returning to Marijois and saving Boa Hancock and others, helping Koala return home, became that embodiment. He wanted to in some ways embody Nika, it seems. And in that way, he succeeded in many ways. And I'm just amazed at how that just goes back that far, because that was like about 400 chapters ago that we found out about some of that stuff. Further back when you go with Boa Hancock. So Oda's really connecting a lot of stuff here. And next, so that's just something. So that's going to be interesting to hear more about how, if there's more to that, where I wonder how much Boa Hancock must have heard about the idea of a sun god who's a liberator, and now that she's in love with the person who's got the fruit that embodies that. And now I want to go on to the very interesting part of the fruit. Obviously, Luffy is not Paramecia anymore. He is now a mythical zone, and off the top of my head, I gotta think about what other mythical zones there are. But now that he's got the Hito no Mi Maro Nika, and now that makes three fruits in general, three fruits together that are human fruits. And the other one is the one that Chopper ate. That was just the regular one that, because he's an animal that ate it, became a intelligent human / hybrid reindeer. And the other one is Sengoku's, who had the Buddha. And I remember at that time when I first read that, and I saw others talk about it, like okay, now they're gods in One Piece, and now we got another one, and he's our protagonist. So this is just, how many fruits out there are gods? We have to ask again. Because could there be a Zeus? Well, we got, and he had, Big Mom's got that one, was it the cloud, right? That Nami's got now is was that Prometheus? They call it. And just like, I'm noticing how Oda's using different references to gods and other mythologies in his story. And also, speaking of gods, we got Eneru back in the Skypiea arc, who proclaimed himself as a god and was defeated by Luffy, who we now know is technically a god. So we had an epic fight there of two gods fighting in the skies above, skies above in Skypiea, and oh, wow. And so let's see. So yes, Joy Boy. The idea of Joy Boy now. We have to talk about the properties of the fruit. So Joy Boy, we had this character known for 800 years ago who's named Joy Boy, and we have been getting references from him for a while. That must have been more of a title, I suppose. Looking at Luffy now, Luffy has his fruit, and he is just laughing away as he's fighting. He's just overflowing with giddiness, I guess. So Joy Boy must have been a hero from during or right after the Void Century who had this fruit. And I'm wondering, the question will be on our minds is whether or not he was the first one to have that fruit and be proclaimed that Joy Boy, or was it someone before him? Was it something that was passed down to him too? Were there other Joy Boys during the Void Century, before the Void Century? Maybe not before, because that's when the Void Century is when the war. It was probably a more peaceful time before the Void Century. But we had this. We understand now why it's Joy Boy. We have Luffy overflowing with laughter. He almost seems like he's a god. When I think about it, I keep thinking of someone like Loki or some kind of court jester who they're just like they're full of humor all the time. And Luffy's kind of like that, anyways. So it's interesting that he's a sun god, but also like that humor-filled person, embodiment now. But all right, back to Joy Boy. Joy Boy is a title a person we've been wondering about for years, and we still don't know nothing about him, except that he probably started the Clan of D, and he may have in combat or in a long-standing war of attrition with the world government or the forming of the world government then, and we know that he lost. But apparently, while he may have lost, the fruit obviously has survived, and the Gorosei and the world government has been seeking it for 800 years, and they came close to 12 years ago, but they still couldn't get it. And now they're back to the embodiment of it. Luffy definitely does not. I don't think he's possessed by. I think there is something to these fruits. I'm thinking with Buddha too. I want to look back at Son Goku, I guess. But it seems to me that there's something to a fruit like this that has an embodiment, traits to it that go into the person. And this seems similar to if you're like a zone user. So you have Rob Lucci, who is a jaguar, and he's a carnivorous thing. And Rob Lucci was already a cold-blooded killer, but I feel with him he was really amped up by the carnivorous nature of his fruit. And with Luffy, this seems to be the same thing, where Luffy's a fun, a carefree guy, and now he's got a fruit that matches that trait, much like Lucci and his fruit, when he's become extremely giddy and ready to, and optimistic, I want to say. And I wonder too how much that worked with Joy Boy. Was he just someone who, was he someone who was always full of humor too, and probably had to, because he was facing a dire threat back then of the world government and probably the Void Century, a war in the Void Century or right after that, and had to be someone who was optimistic and full of humor to keep going and try to win freedom for the nations of the world or the people of the world at that time that were probably suffering in the aftermath of the war. And this also goes well with Luffy, obviously. This fruit fits Luffy to the T now, a liberator. Luffy has basically been that since the beginning. Every adventure Luffy's had, well, most of them, every island, he's gone to all the islands in the East Blue, and he went to Alabasta, and he in Skypiea, Dressrosa, Fishman Island. Luffy's going around helping those in need. That's just his nature. being a pirate, Luffy doesn't really get being a pirate. He calls himself a pirate. He's more of a freedom fighter, I would call him. He's out there and he's an adventurer. But this liberation thing really fits him because now he has the fruit that embodies that people have known about for centuries as that fruit. Well, some people, that's certainly slaves, as I said, know about this fruit. And Luffy has this fruit, and now he's like seemingly gained the ultimate power to gain that kind of gain what he wants, to stop the Gorosei, to go up against the government and help those in need. And his fruit too goes so well with him because now he's a person who uses his imagination in combat and doesn't think of strategies in the same way like Law does. He's not like an Aizen who thinks 12 moves ahead or something. He thinks on the fly, but he is imaginative, and now he is a fruit. And I find now too that Oda's doing something interesting here with Luffy being a sun god, because I really see him trying, I think, set up a light versus darkness with Blackbeard. Because Blackbeard's got a fruit that the dark, what's it properly called? Oh, evading me. But he summons darkness around him, and he sucks in things. It's the idea that darkness consumes everything. And now Luffy here is the bringer of light. He's going to be the one that brings light to the world almost. And both against the government and from someone like Blackbeard and even Kaido who would want to bring tyranny and chaos to the world. This is really setting a kind of good versus evil fight that of all these tyrannical forces and the ones who will stand against them, who will always be there to oppose them. Like, what was I just lost my train of thought? Always be the Willa D. That's what I was looking for. The Willa D was the clan to fight back against them, and that too. We also have the group that Dragon leads doing the same thing, but Luffy now truly is embodying that. And I can't wait to see this fight now with him and Kaido. This is amazing. And that's about all I got to say today. If I think of something else, let's see my notes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to be looking now, see everyone else's reaction over this weekend. This is going to be one fun time. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching.